Welcome to the Loving Yourself podcast with emotional intelligence and self care life coach, Pastor Tammy Wilson. The goal of this podcast is to empower you to be the very best you that you can be. We will talk about self care, setting boundaries, emotional intelligence, and much, much more. Join us now for a broadcast already in progress.
Welcome to the Loving Yourself podcast. I am Tammy Wilson. I am so excited about this new podcast that God has given me. Today, I want to talk to you about the power in the goodbye. The power in the goodbye. So many times we connect to people, we connect to places, we connect to things, and it goes well. Things are good. Things are looking forward, moving forward. Everybody's getting along. And, there comes a time when seasons change. And we have to understand when seasons change, we have to change with the season. A lot of times if we stay in a season too long, then it gets really bad. It's almost like being in the summertime too long and staying in the summer instead of shifting into the fall season. In the fall season is where, change happens. When fall comes, you expect to start changing your clothing. You put the summer clothes away. You bring different things out from the summer. The summer is hot. Everybody knows the summer is hot. You have cookouts, you have gatherings. People are always coming together. But whenever the summer ends, the fall comes in. And a lot of times when the fall comes in, that means you're going to be home a little bit more. You're going to be experiencing your family and your personal intimate settings a little bit more. You're not going to be going as much. You're not going to be traveling as much. And that's the way it is in our personal lives. When the fall comes, that means that it's time to shift. It's time to shift our mentality. It's time to shift things that we're doing. And that's not a bad thing. Change and shifting is good, because if the truth be told, sometimes we are in relationships and friendships and ships too long. We overstay our welcome. And when you do that, things get a little toxic and you no longer get along like you used to. You don't have the same interest. You don't have the same drive that you used to have. You're going in different directions. And that's why we need to just stop for a moment and understand what season we're in. Because somebody might be in spring and you may be in fall, which simply means there's things that are going to have to fall off. In the fall, the leaves are so pretty. Things change, colors change. Change is beautiful. But then after a while, the leaves are going to have to start falling off. And that's the way it is in our personal lives. Sometimes people have to fall off. Relationships have to fall off. Places that we used to go, we have to kind of stop going and shift to a different place in a different direction. And if there are people that are not going in the same direction that you're moving in, that you're shifting in, that's trying to hold you hostage in what was instead of what shall be, then there comes a time that we need to learn how to shift. And saying goodbye is not a bad thing. Saying goodbye is not a bad thing. As long as you do it in the right way. You don't have to be bitter. You don't have to be mean. But you have to understand that your peace matters. I say that all the time. Your peace matters. And if we're arguing and fussing and we can't get along and we can't agree or even agree to disagree, then that's a problem. Then we need to go back and evaluate that thing and understand that maybe it is time for us to go our separate ways. Maybe it is time for me to do something different. Maybe it's time for me to go in a different direction that I know that God is calling me to. And listen, everybody's not going to be okay with your shift, because some people just want to be selfish. They want to keep you for their selfish reasons. But you have to know when it's time for you to go, then everybody's not going to be okay. But as long as you're okay, As long as you're not abandoning anyone and you're not leaving people high and dry, but your peace, your livelihood, all of that matters, and you can't stay in a place too long, because if you do that, you'll start being miserable. You'll start not wanting to go to the work, to the job. You'll start not wanting to be a part of something that once you were so involved in, you were so enthused about going. But when you get to the place to where you really don't feel like going, you really don't want to be there, that means it's almost time for you to reevaluate that situation and find out where it is that you need to be going. Because sometimes we're in places, we're doing things that people want us to do, and we're not. It's not for us. It may be for us for a little while, but it's not for a season. And back to people and personal relationships and friendships, we have to know that some people are in our lives for a season, and then there's some people that are there for a lifetime. But when we overstay the season, listen, nobody wants to be in summer, hot 100-degree summer all the time. It's good for the season. It's good for the few months that we have it, because you can cool off, you can swim, you can do, water rides, you can do a lot of things to cool off while it's hot, but you don't want to be hot all the time. Being hot all the time is miserable. And that's the way it is when we're in relationships that have really ran its course, when we're in relationships where we're broken, where we're frustrated every day, we're aggravated, we don't want to be there. You have to begin to find yourself again. Learn how to pray and seek the face of God and find out, God, what is my next move? What is it that you would have for me to do next? Because you don't want to overstay your stay. And back to my main topic today was, there's power in the goodbye. When you can find that power to get up, when you can find that power to move and shift, when you're in a situation where you're uncomfortable, where you're feeling like you're being used or you're misused, and you're not understood. It's the worst feeling, is to feel like you're misunderstood. Now, sometimes it's okay, but all the time when you're not understood, when they don't ever get you, they don't ever want to hear your point of view, they don't ever want to see your view of things. And sometimes when we look at things from our own perspective and not what reality is, that can be a problem too. But you really have to know where you fit in. You have to know where you belong, and you have to know that wherever you are, then it should feel like home. It should feel like a place of love. You should feel welcome. Now, there are times when there's going to be disagreements. You can agree to disagree. You can go your separate ways and always come back together and reason, come back together and talk. But when there comes a time when you can't do any of that, when none of that is working, then that's a problem. We have to focus on the seasons that we should be in, and not the seasons that we're stuck in. We can get stuck in a season way too long. And when we're stuck, then God cannot really do what he wants us to do, or what he wants to do in us, because we have to be able to know that the new thing is what we should be looking for and what we should expect. Behold, I shall do a new thing, the word says. Shall you not know it? It shall spring forth. And we want to be in the place of new, because sometimes when we stay too long, we get burnt out, and then we start existing instead of living. We start existing. We're just there. We're not happy anymore. We're not excited anymore. We're not moving forward. We're just stuck. And that's the place that I want you to think about. Where am I? What am I doing? Why am I doing? How am I doing what I'm doing? When we want to go to a place that there's peace and not chaos, where there's peace and not confusion, where there's clarity and not everything being foggy and dim, that's the place that we need to get to. And a lot of times that place is found in our goodbye. Goodbye, sometimes it hurts, it feels harsh, it feels bad, but goodbye is simply goodbye. I will see you later. We don't have to become enemies. We don't have to not speak. We don't have to hold grudges. But you have to know when your season is up. When your season is up, you have to be able to say goodbye. Because when you give the goodbye, the stress goes with the goodbye. When you give the goodbye, then the frustration goes with the goodbye. Sometimes you can't sleep at night because you've stayed too long. Mentally you're drained. Mentally you're exhausted. You're snapping on everyone. You're fussing, and you're just blanking on everyone just for any little reason. The simplest things will cause you to snap, crackle, and pop because you've overstayed where you should be. You've overstayed and you've mentally exhausted yourself because you're trying to figure it out and you're trying to make it work. You're trying to fit yourself in this box and you're no longer fitting. You've outgrown where you were. And it's okay to say goodbye and experience what God wants you to experience, because there's always a new level, a new place, a higher height, a deeper depth. There's always places that we have to get to and that we must get to, but we have to be able to say goodbye to what was so we can shift to the place of what is. We have to be able to be mature enough to step to the side and realize that it's better that I let go now than stay in something that's going to cause me heartache, that's going to cause my family heartache, that's going to cause my children heartache, that's going to cause people that are connected to me. When you're free, they get free. When you're bound, they're bound. Because do understand, there are people that are attached to us, and we have to be able to give them what's on the inside of us and pour into other people. What we go through is not just for us. Our trials and tribulations and our shifts and ups and downs, all of those things are not just for us. Those things are for us to go through and have a powerful testimony that we can help somebody else get to where we are. We can help somebody else. We can help push them to that place that we've been. But if we stay too long, then somebody's going to miss it because we're not in position. We have to be able to be in position. That means shifting and moving and growing. Growing and going and growing. Once you grow, you can continue to go. But you have to be mature enough to know how long to stay, when it's time to move. And you have to be able to hear the voice of God. You have to be clear about the directions that God is giving you. Listen, don't make people feel bad about them wanting to move. Don't make people feel bad about their shift and their timing, because do understand that we've been here. We've had a good time. Things were wonderful. But when it starts getting toxic, and when it starts feeling like I'm uncomfortable and I don't want to be here, then it's time for me to go. My motto is, if loving you is hurting me, then I have to let you go. Because self-care means that I have to love me first so that I can love you. And if I'm in pain, I can't help you get healed unless I get healed myself. And sometimes we just have to step away long enough so that we can heal, and we can get our mind back in perspective. We can get our thought patterns back in perspective. Because a lot of times when we're feeling down and we're feeling bad and we're thinking these negative thoughts, then depression comes. We have to step outside of that place that causes us to be depressed. We have to step outside of that place that's causing us to feel down. Find out where your happy place is. Find out where you need to be so that you can get to that place of joy and peace and love and power. We want to be empowered, but you understand that the power is in the goodbye. The power is in letting go. The power is not overstaying where you are and missing where you're going. Listen, you can't be selfish. Some people you have to let go, and it's for their good. And sometimes you have to move and shift, and it's for your good. They'll be okay, and you'll be okay, and you'll be able to come back together and just laugh and talk without the tension and without the frustration. But sometimes you just need a break, you just need a moment. You just need to be able to step outside of what's holding you hostage and what's holding you bound. And when you get strong enough, you can come back and revisit. You can come back and just have a good time together. But you can never do that when it's a lot of tension and when things are chaotic. You have to know when it's time to move, and you have to know when it's time to say goodbye. Listen, I'm going to say it again. Don't be selfish. You cannot stay in a place where you're going two different directions. The Bible even says, how can two walk together except they agree? We have to agree. We may not agree on everything, but the foundation has to be agreement. The foundation has to be unity. I don't care if it's a club, a membership. If you don't believe in what they believe in, if you don't stand for what they stand for, then you're in the wrong place. You're in the wrong place. If you share different beliefs, if I believe in the power of Jesus Christ and you believe that there is no power in Jesus Christ, then we're not going in the same direction. Then there's going to be some confusion there. God is not the author of confusion, and understand that God should be our first and foremost source. He should be the source. We get things twisted, but when we learn how to pray and seek God and ask Him for direction and ask Him for guidance, then we'll be able to hear His voice and move whenever He says move. I'm reminded of Abraham when God told him to leave his kindred, to leave his family, to leave everyone. But He had something greater for him. He wanted him to be the father of nations. Abraham, he listened a little, but he still wanted to take his nephew Lot. Sometimes you can't take anybody in that season. When you're in your fall month, sometimes you have to steal away. You have to get quiet. You have to hear what God is saying to you. You have to get away from all the chatter and everybody else's opinion and all the noise, because what works for one person may not work for you right now. It may work later on, but you have to know what God is saying for you right now. Abraham, he took Lot with him. There was confusion when Lot came. Lot and the herdsmen, they were, fussing and arguing, and Abraham had to kind of settle it. But sometimes we create things that there shouldn't be. If we listen to the voice of God, we wouldn't have to go back and put out fires and fan away the smoke when we simply listen to what God has already told us to do. God has already given us instructions. Some of us, He's told you to stay. Some He's told you to leave. Some He's told you to go into a place of prayer. He's told you to get in the Word. He's told you to fast this amount of days. He's told you to do certain things that will give you guidance and instruction, but you have to be mature enough to listen to the voice of God. Listen to your leaders. Listen to those people that have been put in your path to give you godly counsel, to give you sound word and soundness. Sometimes we can't hear clearly, so God has to place somebody in our life that can hear for us, but we have to be open and receptive to hear what the Spirit has to say. Don't get so caught up in the person or the man or the woman, and know when God is speaking and hear His voice. So there comes a time when we just have to settle down, settle our spirits, settle our minds, and understand if it's somebody's season to leave or shift, you have to be okay with that. You have to be able to release them and understand it's for their good. It's for their own good. And if they're moving out of timing, you have to still take your hands off and let them find out for themselves. It's kind of like the prodigal son when he told his father, he said, I want all of my inheritance. I want everything. I want my things and I'm ready to go. I want my money. I want everything. The father simply said, son, you can have it. He gave it to him and he probably knew that he wasn't ready to handle it. And when people get to a certain age and they get to a certain place, they're grown. They have to make their own choices. They have to make their own decisions. I know you want to protect them. I know that you want to shield them. And sometimes we can, but when they say they're ready and there's nothing else you can do, you just have to let them go. Just like the prodigal son, he went away, he partied, he had a good time, he splurged, he spent all his money, and then he found himself in with the pigs, eating, feeding the pigs, wanting to eat the slop, until the Bible says he came to himself. There was power in that goodbye, because the fact of the matter is it taught him maturity. It taught him what he really had so that he could value who his father really was. He could value what he left at home. He got to the place where he wanted to eat what the pigs were eating, the slop, the leftovers, the things that everybody else threw out. He was so hungry, he wanted to eat that. But he came to himself and he said, listen, I don't have to eat this. My father is rich. My father has servants. I don't have to live like this. But the power in the goodbye was it taught him a lesson. It taught him to value his father. And that's how it is with us. When we hit rock bottom, when we go away and do our own thing, sometimes it teaches us who God really is. It teaches us to appreciate God, because the Bible said he will never leave us or forsake us. He's always there. Even though we leave him, he never leaves us. He's always there waiting on us to return home. He's always there waiting with just open arms, just like the prodigal son's father. He was waiting with open arms. He had the robe. He had a ring. He didn't have the lecture, the chastisement. He had already been chastised enough in his own suffering, the things that he brought upon himself. He understood that if I allow them to go, if I allow him to go, I'm sure he'll be back. Because when you understand that you have a good thing, you may do your own thing for a while like I did. You may want to stray away and experience life. But when you are born and know that you are born with an anointing on your life, with a gift on your life, then you can only go so far. But you'll have to come right back around. So the power in the goodbye is the goodbye teaches you some lessons. The goodbye gives you that space and that freedom that you need so that you can grow and you can excel and you can flourish and you can blossom. When you're stuck in a place that you're not growing, you're not able to be happy, you're not able to be free, then that is a problem. But when you release yourself to God and you release people to God, when God tells you it's time to shift, not just when you get in your own way and you want to shift because you're mad and you're upset and you don't want to be bothered. No, that's not what I'm talking about, because that's going to get you in big trouble. That's going to get you into a place that you won't be so easy to come out of, because then you're moving in your emotions. We've been talking about emotional intelligence. When you're upset and frustrated and you move out of frustration and you move out of aggravation, then that's a dangerous, dangerous place to be in. You cannot move when you're angry. You cannot move when you're upset. You have to learn how to settle your mind, calm down. Put on some soft music if you have to, some worship music, some classic music, whatever calms you. You may have to put on the brown noise, whatever gets you to a place of calmness so you can really hear and understand and know, am I doing the right thing? Is moving or leaving this particular place going to benefit me, or is it going to hurt me? Because a lot of times when we move out of our flesh, and because we're just mad and upset with people, or just not wanting to do this anymore, you have to know, if it's not the right timing, then it's not going to be good. I cannot stress that enough. So you're probably saying, well, you're confusing me, because first you told me to move, and now you're telling me not to move. I'm telling you to move in the right season. Remember, we talked about the seasons. We talked about the two seasons, which was summer and the fall. Know when it's time for things to fall off. Know when it's time for you to let go of some things in the right timing. When it's the right timing, a blessing is in it. When it's the right timing, there's power in that move and that shift. But when you move out of time, then there becomes an issue. So we have to know when it's time for us to move, and when it's time just for us to just be still and wait on the instructions. Be still and hear what God is saying. Never get to a place to where you're shifting or moving out of frustration. Many people shift and move out of frustration, and they find themselves just like the prodigal son, in a bad place. And they say, I wish I would have stayed. I wish I would have left. But when you're surrounded by people that love you, they'll celebrate you whichever way. They'll celebrate you whether you stay or whether you go, because that's love. The prime example is the prodigal son's father. He showed love no matter what. And that's the place that we need to get to. Love covers a multitude of sin. Love covers the wrong decision. Love covers the things that we feel like shouldn't have happened, but it did happen. But when you learn to love people right through it, right in the middle of their mess, right in the middle of their chaos, when you can love people through it, it will help them get through it better. When you deal with people that have problems and issues that they want to fix and they want to get better, but sometimes let's talk about addiction. They may have an addiction. They want to be free, but right now they can't be free. I've learned with my personal experiences, you just keep loving them. You keep praying. You keep giving them advice, godly, sound advice. But you can't get to the place to where you accept what they're doing. You don't condone it, but you still love them through it. And I think a lot of times some people, they don't know how to balance that. You're too harsh, so you run people away. You're too mean and nasty, so no one wants to come around you. But when you find that balance, you find that level place to where you can allow God to speak through you, and you can allow God to move when you move, so that everything can be peaceful. So I just wanted to encourage you to know when your season is up. Know when it's time to stay in that summer, and also know when it's time for fall, because change is always good when you stay too long. And sometimes you need to know, if I change, it's going to be okay. Everything is going to work out. Everything is going to fall in place. Eventually, it may look rocky. It may look like it's not going to work. But if you're obeying God and you're being led to move, you're being led to shift, you're being led to go into that new season, then you'll understand that it is well. It shall be well, and all is well. So just remember, there's power in the goodbye when you do it in God's timing. I love you all. Thank you so much for joining me on this Loving Yourself podcast. You can join me on all of the outlets for the podcast, where my new YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find me there. God bless and go in peace. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will see you again next Monday.